Alessandro Pasquale, generální ředitel a majitel společnosti Mattoni 1873. Představuje druhou generaci pokračující v česko-italském dědictví původního zakladatele Heinricha Mattoniho. Vedení převzal v roce 2007 po svém otci a dotáhl společnost na jedničku středoevropského trhu. Mattoni pod jeho vedením provozuje 11 výrobních závodů, působí v 8 zemích a produkuje lokální i globální značky, například značky PepsiCo. Jeho cílem je udržitelnost a cirkularita. Rodák z italské Padovy, stejně jako jeho otec, sbírá historické automobily. Why water? Why have you decided to move from Switzerland to Czech Republic to continue with the family business of your father?
Well, first, I moved to continue the family business. I believe in family business, so that's definitely the reason why water. Water is a wonderful product, and since I'm a child, it's because my father was doing the same things in Italy before. It's about that. So I heard about factories and production line and water sources since I was a baby.
But your father sold the business in Italy, and if I'm not mistaken, at the point where you decided you want to continue the family business, the family was more about deciding if not to sell the Czech business as well.
Yeah.
And you persuaded them all not to do that.
Yeah. When my father sold the first business, I was like 18, something like this, a bit too young and stupid, but I was very sad. So when it was second business and there was discussion in the family, let's take it easy, let's live in our country. And I said, no way, not a second time. We need to keep this one and not make the same mistake twice.
And it worked out well, but how difficult is this time for the business?
This time is very, very, very difficult because we had COVID, which for our business was bad. No restaurant, we work a lot with the restaurant. Now the inflation pushing hard, energy, and so on. So it's a very, very tough time. But
what I found on your Twitter, the greatest threats are currently expensive energy and inflation for both producers and consumers. Yeah. That was your conclusion of discussion at a conference recently. What is the biggest threat for Mattoni 1873? Now in 2020 and 22-23.
But there is not a big threat as one. There are plenty that if they came together all, then it's not it's not easy. It's of course if crisis will come, and I believe crisis will come, unemployment, so people will consume less if you add to this high cost. And if we start to adding up all the risk, then it look quite scary. But hopefully not everything will happen.
What a business can do to get ready for different scenarios of a crisis, because you have quite big goals in the sustainability field. Yeah. You want to reach the carbon neutrality in 2030. And now with the uncertainty, how do you think about those plans?
But this is not something you can compromise on. So we need to keep developing and investing and changing our business model in a sustainable way. Can we do it faster or slower? That is also influence on the resource available, of course. But it remain a big the main priority actually. So we cannot change this. This is too important.
So those plans, those goals are not endangered?
They are not easy goals, so it's challenging to reach them. But the plans, no. The goals, we are doing our best to reach them. But the plans are strong, and we are determined to follow them.
I've already mentioned the goal 2030 carbon neutral. What needs to be changed in the business, in the way of thinking of the people to achieve that?
I believe that was I can only make my own kind of experience, and it takes a little bit of open mind and a lot of hard work and studying to realize that changing your business model in a sustainable way not only makes sense for the environment, but it can make the business more efficient either. So we always the entrepreneur always think that to do something sustainable means, I don't know, more cost, less efficiency.
That's the general
of things.
perception,
Yes.
especially at the first phase of the whole process.
But I cannot speak for other sector. At least for my sector, there was this perception. I had this perception. It was mistakes. Just people were just, and other entrepreneurs were just thinking by kind of common sense, but never going into the deep and studying the things and understanding real. Because if they would do, and I did, and others did also, you realize that in fact it's not like this. Of course, you need to invest. But we are entrepreneurs, so we have to invest. If you don't invest, you're not an entrepreneur. So that's part of the game.
But probably, isn't it that you have it closer because you work with natural resources, which is something that's the base of your core of your business. So maybe you are closer to the nature and thinking this way.
This is true, especially let's say for another side, which is the next steps which we are introducing, which is the biodiversity. As regard what have been done so far to push a lot in the circularity, is definitely we are lucky because we have very simple product. If you think a car is made of thousands of pieces, it's a bit more complicated. We have a bottle, a label, a cap. So it's actually a little bit more easier to imagine the circularity. So we are lucky on that. But definitely we work in the nature. We never realized that we were already caring about biodiversity because we have the protection area around the source. There are kilometers of areas which are under special protection. And now we need just to, as a company, but as a sector in general, and we will do, to build on this, to build on our protection area, on our regions where we are, because we are all regional business. You don't find a mineral water factory in the middle of a city. We are always in mountains, nice countryside places where the nature is blooming. So that's perfect, and that is. For us, the next steps is to dedicate to the biodiversity.
Next to Karlovy Vary, you've decided to support biodiversity and you focus on butterflies.
Yeah.
I can see why they're beautiful, but I would expect more like eagles or so in your case.
It is not our decision because you make some research, and with the conservationist specialist. And they basically, we agree together what is the priority. And the chain, the food chain, or anyway, the start somewhere. In our case, start with the butterfly. We need to care about them to have all the pollination and blah blah blah. It's important. So that's what we do. That was not my choice. It was the suggestion of the conservationist. Probably once this is done, we will move on. There will be other priorities in the time. The idea is to move to be, it's called nature positive. Nature positive means that your activity brings positivity to the nature. Because so far we have loss of nature. In the last 50 years, we lost nature. We lost green areas, we lost species, we lost... so we need to recover what has been lost. In order to recover, you need positivity. You need to stop the negativity and to start to add positivity. It's a bit theoretical, but...
no, but I like the way how you think of carbon neutrality as a point where it doesn't matter if the company exists or doesn't exist, because it doesn't make any impact. That's the neutrality. And if you want to make a positive impact, then you have to do something above that. Yeah. So that's the biodiversity. And I see now why you started with butterflies. It's beautiful, probably the most beautiful part of all the insects. Yeah. So then you may continue with the more ugly ones. Yeah. and support even
we'll
more.
We'll see. It depends region by region. In another place, we are caring about some frogs. Okay. Which are in danger. And it's small things, but if everybody would do those things, well, that would make a difference. Because as every company would have few projects on biodiversity, we will have then thousands of project on biodiversity, and that would make a big difference.
Well, usually it makes difference when someone starts, and then the others follow. That could help. So
I know the one who started that. Don't give me this. There are others pioneer, but we are in the first. But even I think I discovered that in the building where we have the office, they're producing honey. They made the place for the bees in the top.
I just wanted to mention butterflies don't make honey. You need bees for that.
Yeah. So that's even in real estate you can care about biodiversity using the roof of your buildings.
But actually, it would be a good connection with the water. Honey taste of Mattoni, probably. And next time. But now back to the brand as such and the neutrality and circularity that you've mentioned. What is what can make the biggest impact on this way? What's your way? I know you want to set, and you've already started with a pilot project of deposit refund system.
Yes.
How big influence it can make?
Huge. We have finished now the studies of our carbon footprint. The biggest part is the packaging. So if we make the packaging circular, we reduce this biggest part to 1/3. So that would be the single biggest and easier way how to reduce our carbon footprint. Then, of course, you have the transport, you have to work with the transport, blah, blah, blah.
But you are already transporting the bottles by a train.
Yes, this helps also. And we can increase it. I'm discussing now with a partner to build a logistics center in Moravia for train, specialized, so that to care all the let's say Moravian part of our activity to deliver all by train. So definitely is also important. But it's the sum of all these parts. But the most important is definitely the circularity of the packaging, and it has to start with the DRS. DRS is not a target; it's just instruments to reach circularity, and hopefully, slowly, we are getting there.
Why is it so difficult to get there here in Czech Republic? Because in Slovakia you already worked with that.
Yeah, in Slovakia we established this year. It's working very well. It's reaching all the target, and circularity will be there. Why? I don't know. Because we say nobody's a prophet at home, you know. So we start with Czech, and maybe Czech will be the last. The other country are moving. Hungary is moving. Even in the country where I am, even Serbia is moving. Austria will be in 25. So maybe Czech will be the last, but it will come because it's the most logical solution. There are opponents. There are people as interest. There are people who doesn't want to change because change is a risk. So people doesn't want to take risk, but we will overcome all that.
Yeah, the opponents say it's costly and it also makes quite a huge carbon footprint, which what I've read from your studies is not the case, but the other way around. So in 2 years, you have a pilot project with Kolik PET where you offer the possibility to buy the refunded bottle. How does it work? How do customers see it?
It's incredible success in a small size because it's just one client, but there's been a big appreciation for the consumer and big growth of the deposited packaging. Imagine that we offer the same. You can have it deposited or non-deposited. Exactly the same things, and more than 70% of the volumes are sold in the deposited one, and the volume grew, I don't know, 3-4 times just because of this. So it's obvious that the people appreciate it and they are looking for it. By the way, we are used to it. We have it in the glass bottle, beer or water. That's normal. So it's nothing new for Czech consumer. And the ones who say the stories about the cost, about the carbon footprint, it's ridiculous. We didn't ask money to anybody. We are going to pay. The producers are going to pay for everything. So it's our problem. Sorry, if I want to spend money, I spend money. But it's not true, by the way. It's not costly. But even if it would be, we pay. So what's your problem? And carbon footprint, we have a study. I didn't see any other study on carbon footprint. So the guys who say that is higher, they are inventing. Bring a study, bring evidence. Then we can talk.
Yeah, because there can be quite a huge impact on the needs of new material that you can diminish by like 80% can be, or 85% can be recycled.
Yeah. If you have circularity, you save new resource, which is a good thing in general, because why to waste resource? So you can basically reduce the new resource utilization by 85%, which is enormous. And if every business could reduce the use of resource of 85%, I think we have solved most of our problem. But also in this time is also important to consider that it reduces dependency on those countries who has those resources. So it's not just economical, environmental, but it's also kind of geopolitical point to be able not to be so dependent on oil, on those kind of resources from countries where the, let's say, concept of democracy is somehow a little bit different from our.
So it has more pluses to move this way. You've also decided, we are talking mostly now about PET, but the deposit refund system could be also made on cans, and you've just recently started a can line in your production. Why cans? We are not that used to have mineral water in a tin can. But why is it so important? And is it probably easier to recycle the cans or no?
Look, first, cans is very popular packaging, which is growing. People like it. It's trendy, it's easy and nice. True, there is no mineral water in cans, so why not to be the first? No, the fact that it was not doesn't mean that it cannot be successful, and it is successful. The packaging itself, it's also fully recyclable, like the PET. Should go the same way through DRS and recycling and reuse. So it's comparable. I don't think it's difficult to say which one is better. Of course, to extract aluminium at the beginning, you need a lot of energy, while recycling is much easier. So there is big advantage in using the recycle compared to the virgin. But overall, they are like comparable packaging. I don't think one is better than the other.
I'll get back to what we've talked about just before and connected, because I'll quote your Twitter once again. Only 42% of PET bottles are less than a third, and less than a third of cans actually get recycled. Yeah. They end up in landfills, thrown away in nature, or as another single-use product that cannot be recycled. What potential? Where do you see the potential to change this? Is it because when we see the percentage, how you can persuade the people to change this?
But the people, people needs to be motivated to bring back the bottles, and this you can do with deposit. By the way, it's not that.
So it's the economical motivation.
Yes, because. Let's be honest, the bottle has a value. Has a value for me as a producer, has a value for the recycler, has a value across all his process, even in the circularity. Only for the consumer doesn't have a value. Well, has a value, but it's too low. If you go in poor country, you don't find a bottle around, because the intrinsic value of the bottle is enough to convince those people to collect them and sell them. But we are too spoiled. For us, we don't care. So you need to give a tangible value to the bottle. That's why this is the philosophy of the deposit, to give this sense of value to the empty packaging. When this is done, then to have all the rest of the process very easy. In Slovakia, I want to remind, we started in January. We now, in the last month, we are collecting 80% and more of bottles. Next year we target 90%. And since because we are going in steps, since August, all the material which has been collected, all has been recycled back to bottles. So, I mean, it's not that it's so difficult, so easy. And it's about months. It's not about decades. Or, you know, we was listening and reading the new packaging regulation of the EU. There are targets to 2040. We can do things today in really months or
But you
couple
have to
of years.
decide.
You can really change if someone we're brave enough to make a law and decide.
You are also very active, and you were one of the initiators of zálohujeme.cz initiative. How does that work, and do you see that it helps to persuade more also producers that this direction is the right one?
Well, it helped because now producers are all convinced. It works nicely because it's a platform of discussion between many different stakeholders, whether are industry, NGOs, or opinion leaders. So that's nice, and actually I believe that once we will have finished his initial role is to support the implementation of DRS, should find a second life, because it's very important to have places where different stakeholders meet and discuss in a civil way the important matters on sustainability. Not always happen, because if you see, especially between environmental NGO and big companies, the relation not always is the best. So this we need to avoid, and we need to talk more and to align more and try to be constructive. And Zalomi is a good example of that.
Not only you try to change the recycling in Czech Republic, but you've emphasized the sustainability as your main goal for the whole industry, while becoming the president of the European Association of Mineral Waters Producers this June. How do you want to achieve that? What will you see as a success?
Well, I don't believe in sustainability as a competitive advantage of a company. Actually, I'm quite disturbed when I see it, because I think the transformation is a sector problem. So it's something that the sector as a whole should address, solve it, improve it as much as possible, and then we go back to business as usual. So our success is the quality of our product, the marketing, and the good functioning distribution. Is not to make a patent on some good environmental solution. If we make such a patent, then we should put it at disposal also of the other. So that's why I'm putting my effort also behind the European Association, because I would really reach a solution which is sector based and European based, so which is equally beneficial for all the mineral water producer. So that's the goal, and I think that generally, at least the mineral water industry, believe the same. So that's why we are united in these efforts, and I think we're getting good result.
And just, you have two sons. Do they see it the same? Not only the circularity and sustainability, but the view of the family business. Will they continue?
My sons are very small, are 9 years old, and they are a good motivation, because we should listen to our son or daughters and watch them and understand them when we make our choice. One times, couple of years ago, they forced their mother in kind of autumn to enter into, they're living in Lugano on the lake, to enter into the lake to pick up a floating bag garbage on the lake. So, when your children do that, of course, you have to do it because you understand how important it is for them, this topic. And your children, as the children of everybody, will be your future consumer and the one who decide in the future. So if we look at what they think, and we cannot imagine that the world will stay as it is, because they want a different world, and they will make it when they will be adults. So it's a great school in the terms of the sustainability, etc. They really care. If they want to take the business, I have been very lucky. I got a huge opportunity from my father to continue his job. I have to give the same opportunity to my kids. They will take it or not, they're free, up to them. If they will want, I'm very happy. If they will not want, I will be happy same. The only things that they're small, so I will need to work another, 15 years just to know if they want, and 20 years before they can start. So I have quite a long time in front of me.
I think it will be a very interesting time, and I thank you for an interesting interview.
Thank you very much.